Welcome to This Explainer. I was recently digging into this absolutely fascinating concept from Steve Chandler about how we tackle our daily tasks. And man, it completely flipped my perspective. The core premise is actually pretty simple, but it is incredibly powerful. What if you could unlock this boundless, almost unstoppable energy just by gamifying the daily grind, right? It's all about making a fundamental shift in how we view the effort we put in. And honestly, it all starts with one simple internal switch. You gotta put on your game face. Think about your weekends for a second. Think about your hobbies. Have you ever wondered why we so gladly pour just exhausting amounts of physical and mental effort into our time off? Yet we completely struggle to find that exact same energy at the office? I mean, we will literally wake up at dawn, haul heavy equipment around, sweat, strategize, push ourselves to the absolute limit on a Saturday, and do it totally willingly. Yet, come Monday morning, answering a few emails feels like lifting boulders. Why is that? Okay, let's dive into this. Chandler points out a really great example to explain this phenomenon. He calls it the golfer mindset. When people are out on the course, they bring this incredible energy, massive innovation, and this ongoing stubborn commitment to getting better. And why? Because there's absolutely zero resistance. It doesn't feel like work at all. It feels like fun. They put on their game face and they become completely obsessed with improving. Now, contrast that with your typical employee mindset, right? Where tasks are just met with fatigue, a ton of resistance, and that overwhelming feeling of just doing a chore. The reality is, people work harder at play simply because it is a game. To really hammer home how games just magically neutralize fatigue, let's look at a super relatable scenario. Picture a bunch of guys sitting around a table playing poker. It's late. In fact, it's so late that they end up playing all night until the sun literally comes up. Now, if you've ever done this or even just seen it happen, you really have to ask yourself, how on earth do they manage to stay awake, alert, and entirely engaged for that many hours straight? Like, what kind of game face are they wearing to pull off that kind of physical feat? Well, what's really interesting here is that this scenario completely busts a major myth. When those poker players finally stumble home to get some sleep, you might be tempted to ask them if they were just chugging coffee and energy drinks all night. But no, they'll usually confess they were probably just drinking beer. And wait, shouldn't beer slow you down? Shouldn't it make you incredibly tired? Well, not if you're playing a game. Plus, they were probably smoking cigars, eating a bunch of junk food, things that are definitely not known as physical stimulants. So what was actually keeping them going? It's the ultimate stimulant, the game itself. The sheer joy of competition is what fueled that entire all-nighter. And that brings us to a really crucial paradigm shift. It's beautifully summarized by the famous playwright Noel Coward, who used to provoke his audiences by saying this: "Work is more fun than fun." It's a bold statement, isn't it? It completely challenges our fundamental assumption that work and fun have to be polar opposites. Chandler uses this exact quote to show that if we just learn how to put on our game face, we can completely change our entire relationship with our jobs. But look, of course, not everybody buys into that idea right away. In fact, Chandler actually shared this exact Noel Coward quote in a guidebook for a sales seminar he was running, and I absolutely love the reaction it got. One of the participants in the back of the room raised his hand and jokingly said, "Yeah, Steve, who is this Noel Coward guy? I figure with a quote like that, he's either a porn star or a professional golfer," right? It got a huge laugh. But as Chandler points out, that little bit of humor actually reveals a deep truth about how we're wired to think. We hold on to this limiting belief that the truly fun jobs are always somewhere else. We always say things like, "Man, if only I could get a job like that." But the reality? Fulfilling and fun work isn't about finding some magical new career. It can actually be found in absolutely anything you're doing right now. And this brilliantly illustrates exactly how to do it. If you want to transform a totally boring job into a highly engaging activity, you have to consciously introduce the gamification toolkit. You have to create rules. First up, list your personal bests. This gives you a baseline benchmark to beat, right? A clear starting point. Next, set very clear goals to aim for. Then establish strict time limits. Think of it kind of like a shot clock in basketball. It completely manufactures this exciting sense of urgency. Fourth, create competition. Now, that could mean trying to beat your coworkers or simply trying to beat your own past performance. And finally, keep detailed records. Just like a sports team tracks all its stats. The more of these elements you inject into a mundane task, the more fun and engaging it inherently becomes. You are effectively acting as the designer of the game you're about to play. Let's look at how putting on that game face actually works out in the real world. Chandler shares this fantastic case study about a young man he worked with on a project down in Phoenix. Now, to be clear, This wasn't a professional athlete or some hotshot video game designer. This was a guy selling office equipment. But his results? Absolutely staggering. He was actually selling 3 times as much office equipment as the average salesperson on his entire team. I mean, that is a massive, undeniable level of success. So you gotta wonder, what was his secret to hitting 3x sales? It completely baffled his coworkers, by the way. While the rest of the team took rejection incredibly hard, got depressed super easily, and constantly struggled to put their deals together, this young man was just completely unfazed. His secret? He literally just didn't take the typical setbacks of sales personally. He had absolutely no depression over lost deals, zero fear of rejection. He fully embraced the challenge simply because he was playing a completely different game than everyone else in that office. Listen to exactly how this top performer described his approach. He told Chandler with this big smile, "I don't take this that seriously. I love all my sales challenges. The tougher the prospect is, the more fun I have selling. There is absolutely nothing personal or depressing in any of this for me. When I meet a new sales prospect, it's a chess game." Just think about that for a second. By adopting that chess match mindset, by essentially putting on his game face every single morning, he built total resilience. He completely transformed what his peers saw as exhausting, soul-crushing work into a highly engaging, highly stimulating puzzle. So the absolutely crucial takeaway here is this. This gamification strategy works universally. Chandler really emphasizes that whatever it is you have to do today, whether that's tackling a massive, complex project at the office or, finally doing that huge cleaning job at home this weekend, turning it into a game is always going to bring you higher levels of energy and motivation. It shifts your entire perspective. You finally stop fighting the heavy resistance of work and you start tapping into the limitless energy of play. Which brings us directly back to you. I want you to take a hard look at your own life right now. What is the biggest, most exhausting project currently sitting on your plate? The one you are absolutely dreading. Now, using this toolkit we just talked about, what are the rules of the game you are about to turn it into? It's time to put on your game face, start keeping score, and start playing.